The man sitting in the corner booth of a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, was reading. Not hiding, not running, reading. He had been there long enough to order food, to sit quietly, to draw almost no attention at all. 5 days earlier, a man had been shot and killed on a midtown Manhattan sidewalk. The killer had vanished. One of the most publicized manhunts in recent American history was already underway. And yet, here he was. What changed everything was not a tip from a federal database, not a surveillance algorithm, not a forensic breakthrough. It was a teenager behind the counter who thought he recognized a face. This is the story of Luigi Mangione, and the document found in his backpack that may tell us more about the psychology of ideological violence than any interrogation ever could. Brian Thompson, the chief executive of United Healthcare, was scheduled to attend an investor conference at a hotel in Midtown Manhattan on the morning of December 4th, 2024. According to prosecutors, he never made it inside. He was shot twice on the sidewalk outside the hotel at approximately 6:45 in the morning. He was pronounced dead at a nearby hospital shortly after. The shooter, captured on surveillance cameras in the area, was calm, methodical. He moved without apparent urgency, walking away from the scene and into Central Park on foot. According to investigators, he had been waiting. Prosecutors allege the attack was planned, not impulsive, not reactive, the kind of violence that requires a significant amount of cognitive work before a single action is taken. And that is where this case becomes something other than an ordinary homicide, because Luigi Mangione was not, by any conventional measure, a person in crisis. He was 26 years old, a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania. By the accounts of those who knew him, intelligent, driven, someone with what looked, from the outside, like a clear future ahead of him. What changed, according to his documented online activity across several platforms, was his body. In the years before December 2024, Mangione had written publicly about a spinal condition, chronic pain, a mounting frustration, a sense that the body that had once felt reliable was no longer his own. In forensic psychology, there is a documented pattern called grievance radicalization. It begins with a personal loss, an injury, a humiliation, a system that fails someone at a moment when they needed it most. And in some individuals, not most, not even many, but some, that personal loss does not remain personal. It generalizes. The injury becomes evidence of a system. The system becomes a target, and the target, over time, becomes something that, to the radicalized mind, deserves what is coming to it. Prosecutors allege that Mangione's notebook, recovered from his backpack at the time of his arrest, contained entries expressing hostility toward the American healthcare industry and toward wealthy executives in particular. We do not know the full contents of that document. We do know what prosecutors have said about it in court filings. What we can analyze is the psychological architecture it suggests, a manifesto, and prosecutors have used that word in describing the notebook, is not written in the moment of violence. It is written before. It is, psychologically, the final stage of a process that researchers call moral licensing, the point at which a person has constructed in their own mind a sufficient justification for what they are about to do. Notice the sequence: personal suffering, systemic framing, moral inversion, the redefining of violence as justice, of a targeted killing as accountability. This process does not require the absence of intelligence. In fact, researchers consistently find that higher verbal and analytical ability can accelerate it, because the mind becomes better at building the internal case, better at finding the argument, better at silencing the doubt. The ghost gun recovered alongside the notebook, the fake identification documents, the 5 days between the shooting and the arrest, spent moving carefully across state lines. These are not the actions of someone who did not understand what they had allegedly done. They are the actions of someone who, prosecutors allege, believed it was justified. Something unusual happened in the days after Luigi Mangione's arrest. A significant portion of the public did not respond with condemnation. They responded with sympathy. Fan accounts appeared within hours. Mail flooded in from across the country and around the world. A juror nullification concern was raised explicitly by a federal prosecutor in open court, who told the judge that the court need only look out the window at the people outside who believe that what Mangione allegedly did was right. This is not, strictly speaking, about Luigi Mangione. This is about what his case activated in people who have never met him. The forensic psychology of mass sympathy for an alleged killer is itself a documented phenomenon. Researchers call it displaced moral licensing, the mechanism by which an audience applies the same justification framework the perpetrator used because they share the underlying grievance. They are not endorsing the act. They are recognizing the argument, and that may be the most unsettling thing this case leaves behind. As of July 2026, Luigi Mangione has pleaded not guilty to all charges in both his state and federal cases. His state trial in New York is currently scheduled to begin on September 8, 2026. His federal trial is scheduled to follow in January 2027. Terrorism charges brought against him in New York were dismissed by the judge in September 2025, who ruled that prosecutors appeared to conflate an ideological belief with the legal definition of terrorism. He has not testified. He has not spoken publicly about the allegations against him. A court will determine what he is guilty of. What we have examined today is something the court cannot determine. The architecture of a mind that reaches a point where violence becomes, to itself, a form of logic. That is not a verdict, but it may be the most important question this case asks.